Lucia, let's take a look at what you've written for us today. We've got the shoe sales. So here's what you wrote. The bar chart, which is measured in thousands, compares the difference between brown and black leather shoes sold in 9 different countries in Europe here in 2019. Fine. Overall, for the majority of leather shoes, black ones were sold the most. However, brown shoes were preferred by customers from 5 countries, whereas black shoes were favored in 4 of the European countries. All right, that's fine. I might have changed that first sentence a little bit. I didn't like from the majority of leather shoes. I didn't like that. I would have just preferred something cleaner here. So overall, black shoes were preferred over brown. That would have been fine, okay? Or you could have said black shoes were purchased more than brown. That also would have been okay. All right. So to begin with, in terms of black shoes, the most purchases were in Hungary with nearly 145,000. No S. When you have a number before the word, you don't put the S. Followed by Italy, Belgium, and the UK with around 125, a bit over 100, and exactly 100 respectively. From all the countries, Belgium citizens bought nearly 95% more black shoes than brown, 100,000 compared to 5,000, whereas almost, not twofold, you can't use twofold like this, we're almost twice as many, would have been nice here, twice as many French people acquired brown shoes. This is awkward, the brown color of shoes. You could have just said acquired brown shoes. 70. Now here I would have preferred a colon. The same thing here, not a comma. It's not strong enough here, okay? Okay, let's continue and then I'll tell you my thoughts. As far as brown shoe sales are concerned, the peak of sales was in Poland with approximately 140,000, no S, then 125,000 in both Germany and Hungary. In addition, Ireland and Holland preferred brown shoes to black, not to the black ones, to black, that's it. And then it's implied that you mean black shoes, with 100,000 and 85,000 brown shoe sales. Comparison with 75 and just over 55 of black shoes. Okay, I think this was okay. I didn't love the way you organized it. So in other words, it's not how I would have preferred it organized, because what did you do? The way you organized it was you had black shoes. Okay, so let's talk about what you did. You talked about black shoes, okay, for the most popular, and then you talked about the least popular, but then you compared brown shoes here. And then here, you talked about brown shoes compared to black. So I can't look at the paragraphs and say, okay, this paragraph talks about black shoes, because that's not the case. And here I can't say this one talks exclusively about brown. So I didn't really like it because you couldn't really pinpoint a central idea. Started talking about black here, and then you kind of switched. You started talking about comparisons with brown. I didn't think that was particularly a great way to organize this. Now, here you talk about the highest sales of brown and then here again, this one talks mostly about brown. You did compare black here. So I'm going to tell you how I like to see this done. Of course, it's not the only way you can do it. That's implied. There are a million ways to do this, but I will show you one way that I like to see this done. First of all, I separate my paragraphs into black exclusively and brown exclusively. In my black leather shoe paragraph, I talk about these three, okay, so the ones that are over 100,000. I focus on Hungary, that is the highest number in the chart. So that's followed closely by Italy, and then the top three are rounded out by Belgium with just over 100,000. Then I say the fewest black leather shoes were sold in France at about 35,000, and the remaining countries, and I name them, all sold between 50 and 100,000 black leather shoes. Then I talk about brown leather. And here I say, while 3 countries sold over 100,000 black leather pair of shoes, 4 countries sold over 100,000 brown leather shoes. And then I would say specifically it was Poland with the highest. I would say these two were tied, and then I would say Italy was just over 100,000. Then I would say the lowest figure on the chart could be seen in Belgium. Okay? And then again, I would say what happened with the rest of the countries. And that's pretty much it. Could you do some sort of comparison between them? Yes, you could. I did say, I did compare the 4 over 100,000 to the 3. I did that there. You could even point out here when you're talking about Belgium that it's even lower than the lowest figure for black leather shoes. So you could do that, but I do like to make sure that it's clean. I want when the examiner reads it to say, oh, okay, this paragraph is about this. This is clear and this is clean. All right, so those are things that are important. And then there was some awkwardness with your grammar, but okay, it was fine overall. Let's talk about traditional food and fast food now. Experts throughout both the developing and developed countries. All right, get rid of this the here. You don't need it, not with the plural. Experts throughout both developing and developed countries have debated whether homemade meals or processed food has, because it's has a greater impact on families, each person, and society overall. Some believe traditional cuisine replacement is detrimental for the community. Now here you need contrast. However, personally, I strongly disagree. Having a comma here is not enough because you've got two opposing statements, so you need some sort of a linker. This detriment. All right, now careful. The essay is not about this. Whether traditional cuisine replacement. You got to be careful. It's about this replacement by fast food. So it's not just replacing traditional cuisine in general. Okay. So I would have liked something about fast food here. This essay will argue that fast food meals brought a positive effect in people's modern lifestyle, to people's modern life. I would have preferred that, using examples from UNESCO and the Food Drug Administration. Okay, let's see what you wrote. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that processed meals have a negative impact on people's health, family bonding, and cultural heritage. All right, now I don't understand that. I don't understand why you're talking about the negative impact. Because essay asks you to what extent do you agree or disagree with this. You told us very clearly that you strongly disagree. You told us that the essay will talk about the positive effect of fast food. So we have a really good idea about what this essay is going to be about. And then all of a sudden, in your first body paragraph, look what you tell us. So you never informed us that you were going to talk about this. And so it's kind of coming out of nowhere for the examiner. You don't want to do that. Remember that you want to have a logical progression. You want to have a clear progression of ideas, and it has to make sense. So when you've said you strongly disagree, and then you're going to talk about something else, for you suddenly to talk about the opposite makes no sense, especially since they didn't ask you to discuss both sides. They asked you to what extent. So when they do that, and you're so in one direction, I strongly disagree. It doesn't make sense for you to include this. If you want to include it, then you have to indicate this in your introduction. And it's actually really easy to do, and I personally like it. So what you could have said is, some people believe traditional cuisine replacement is detrimental for the community. And while there is some merit to this position, personally, I strongly disagree, or personally, I disagree. So do you see what I've done? I've given the reader this kind of sense that, you know what? Yeah, it's not totally wrong. But on the whole, I still think the other side is stronger. So that's what you need to do if you want to include this kind of paragraph. Okay? All right, so let's see what you actually said here. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that processed meals have a negative impact on people's health, family bonding, and cultural heritage. The central reason behind this is threefold. Here I would have really liked a colon, not just a comma. Firstly, the majority of ready-to-eat meals are known to be high in calories, fats, and very low in nutritional elements. Consequently, someone known for constant processed food intake can develop health issues such as obesity, high cholesterol, diabetes, and heart disease. Secondly, by avoiding traditional meal, it's an adjective, so no S, meal preparation, some of the most important family bonds between children and their parents can be missed, as many relationships can grow stronger while cooking together and nevertheless sharing and enjoying the prepared meal. I don't really like this word nevertheless here. The last drawback of, I don't really like this expression either, traditional kitchen replacement, It's as if you're replacing the kitchen. Okay, like you're renovating a house and oh, we're going for some kitchen replacement. It's not the right word here. It's not a collocation that makes sense to a native speaker. So you could have said cuisine, which is a much better word. So the last drawback of replacing traditional cuisine, but even more accurate here would be what you're replacing it with, because you could replace the traditional cuisine of your country with the cuisine of another country. So it's important to talk about fast food. It's not bad if you use the word, okay? It doesn't mean that like you're not using your own language. It's fine. You have to use the word fast food. So the last drawback of fast food is the loss of ethnic origins. For example, recent empirical research by UNESCO demonstrated that 80% of all traditional French dishes were passed, you want a different spelling of passed, P-A-S-S-E-D, from generation to generation. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that society's value depend on keeping traditional cuisine alive. Okay, fine. Let's see what else you said. On the other hand, although there is a case of homemade meals benefiting society, the impact of convenience meals cannot be overstated. Good. This is largely because the time spent on traditional meals can be replaced with time for personal hobbies and family activities. For instance, if an individual, careful, you can't use will after if. So, if an individual does not have to spend an average of 2 hours cooking every day, this time can be spent in the gym, playing sports, learning a new language, or doing other activities. An extensive survey from the Food and Drug Administration asked 9,000 children in the U.S. what makes them happy. 78% of children reported being happier spending more time with their mothers rather than having daily homemade meals. Okay. Also consistent with this line of thinking is that the demand for convenience food will increase the number of jobs, not employments, in the food industry. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that ready-to-eat meals have a tremendous impact on the modern lifestyle. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that although traditional food undoubtedly plays a considerable role in every country, the role of fast food is much more convenient for a busy contemporary life. It is predicted that the role of fast food will increasingly grow in importance. Okay, I like it. I don't like the role of fast food, and then again here the word role. I would have liked a little more variety here. So yeah, you could have just said fast food is much more convenient. Okay, and then here it would have been okay to say the role of fast food. So I think that's fine. I liked this paragraph. I thought you did a nice job. Now there's one little thing that I want to make sure of. Just want to double check that you've talked about families, individuals, and society. So here I remember you talking considerably about family, so that's fine. And then you talked about society and the cuisine and so forth and so forth. So that's fine too. And then you talked about society here as well. Although I didn't really get that. I kind of felt like still you were talking about families. So what about the individual? Maybe you could say here you were talking about the individual. You were talking about like more jobs being created. I can't say you totally convinced me that you talked about the individual. Here you talked about children. Again, I felt like it was talking about families. So you really did need to talk about all three elements of our world, basically individuals, family, and society. It's not too tricky to do, I think. Like I like what you did here about keeping tradition alive. That's totally social. And then talking about families here, I thought that was clear. Maybe individuals, yeah, you could have just said that it's really helpful for individuals who, may not live with other people. It provides a wonderful way for them to feel satisfied without having to spend the money or time to cook for themselves. Or you could have talked about how it's negative for individual health because of all the related fat and cholesterol and so forth. So, on an individual level, it could be unhealthy. So, those are just some examples of things you could have said for individuals. Okay. It's a good set overall. You're definitely on the right track. I like what you're doing. So, keep at it, and we'll meet back here with your next set. Okay. Good luck.